The alarm went off at 6:30 a.m. just like every day. The smell of coffee filled Helena's small apartment. She was a literature teacher at a public school in Sao Paulo. At 49, her life revolved around a meticulous routine: morning classes, afternoon grading, dinner with her daughter at night. But that Thursday everything fell apart. Clara, her 17-year-old daughter, woke up late. She rushed to the kitchen, expecting to find her mother in an apron, stirring the coffee like always. But instead there was silence. "Mom?" she called, walking down the hallway. Nothing. Helena's bedroom door was open, the bed neatly made, the closet slightly ajar. But something felt off. Her phone was still on the nightstand charging. Her purse, with all her documents and wallet, was there too. Clara froze. The only thing that seemed out of place was a crumpled envelope lying by the trash can with her name, Clara, scribbled in pen. But it was blank inside. No one at the school had seen her arrive. The hospital where Helena went for regular checkups, due to an old heart arrhythmia, had no record of her either. Building security footage showed her leaving at 4:17 a.m., wearing a jacket and carrying a notebook under her arm. And nothing more. The police, called at the end of the day, considered it a voluntary disappearance. Could be stress, they said. Or emotional burnout. It's common among teachers. They said it as if that explained everything. But Clara knew better. That night, locked in her mother's room, she started going through drawers, old files, anything that could be a clue. Between dusty books and forgotten notebooks, she found an old diary with a blue cover. Most pages were about classes, reflections, short stories her mother wrote. But on a torn sheet something made Clara freeze. "If one day I disappear, it wasn't my choice. Look for him. He knows everything. Telephone, 98. The number was incomplete. But it was enough for Clara to understand. Her mother didn't run away. She left a warning and a riddle. The next morning, Clara didn't go to school. She sat in front of the computer, took a deep breath, and began to investigate the woman she thought she knew. In the days following the disappearance, Clara barely ate. She spent hours in her mother's room, trying to piece together a puzzle made of pieces that didn't seem to belong to the same game. But one thing was clear: Helena had lived a far more complex life than she ever let on. After pressing the police to unlock her mother's laptop, Clara finally got access with the help of a technician. What she found was nothing like she expected. There was a folder named Marfim, Ivory, password protected. It was the same name Helena had once given her childhood cat, something only Clara would know. Inside the folder were records of trips her mother had never mentioned. 3 visits to Curitiba, 2 to the countryside of Rio Grande do Sul, and 1 quick trip to Uruguay. All within the last 5 years. But Helena had never been away for more than 2 days. According to her, these were school events. Clearly they weren't. Even more shocking were monthly deposit receipts of 3,000 Brazilian reals from an institution called Fundação São Gabriel, supposedly a charitable organization dedicated to rehabilitation projects and historical memory. But there was nothing public about it, no website, no social media, no reports. Just an old address in downtown Porto Alegre. Clara began digging into news articles and archived files and found an almost invisible trail. In 1987, a scandal involving the Colégio Internado São Gabriel, accused of physical and psychological abuse against underage students, was buried after the suicide of a student whose name was never publicly revealed. The school was shut down, but nothing was ever brought to trial. The people responsible vanished from the public eye. Clara connected the dots and understood. Helena had been one of those students. And somehow, what happened in that place was directly linked to her disappearance. The foundation was a smokescreen. Then, in a sleepless night with swollen eyes, Clara received an anonymous email. The subject line read, "She's not alone." The body of the message contained only one line: Rua das Palmeiras, 438, Vila Velha, Espírito Santo. Without thinking, Clara printed the message, packed a backpack with her mother's diary and left. Her intuition was louder than fear. And what she was about to uncover would change everything she thought she knew about the woman who raised her. The bus ride to Vila Velha was long and silent. Clara, her hood pulled over her face and her mother's diary on her lap, tried to keep her anxiety in check. The address from the email led her to a modest neighborhood far from the city center. House number 438 was old, with cracked walls and windows covered with cloth instead of curtains. She rang the doorbell. No answer. She was about to leave when an elderly woman with sharp eyes and a face marked by time appeared at the side gate. "You're Helena's daughter?" she asked before Clara could say a word. Clara's heart skipped a beat. "Yes. Do you know her?" The woman nodded slowly. I do, from a long time ago. Her name was Rita, and she had been Helena's classmate at the old São Gabriel boarding school. As Clara stepped inside, she noticed folders, boxes of files, and newspaper clippings scattered throughout the living room. It felt like a secret trench of memory. Your mother and I survived something no one should ever have to endure. What they did to us at that school was torture. But it wasn't just that. It was an experiment, psychological conditioning. And the people responsible are still out there, Rita said, her voice steady. Clara listened in silence. Sleepless nights, muffled screams, unexplained disappearances. The boarding school was more than just a school, it was a laboratory of silence. And Helena, according to Rita, had spent the last few years tracking down survivors, collecting evidence, and preparing for the moment to expose the truth. But she was being followed. She knew time was running out. She said that if anything happened, her daughter would know what to do. She trusted you more than anyone. Rita then handed Clara a folder. Inside were old photos, forged medical records, copies of letters, and a cassette tape recording. Clara recognized her mother's handwriting on one of the letters. The truth hurts, my daughter, but hiding it is what truly kills. If you're reading this, it means the time has come to speak. What we did was survive. Now it's up to you to free the past. And there, among the documents, a shocking revelation, the name of a powerful politician from São Paulo. A man beloved by the media, admired for his progressive speeches. But in the 1980s he was the director of São Gabriel boarding school. Clara's blood ran cold. The truth was much bigger than she had imagined. And far more dangerous. Clara returned to São Paulo clutching the folder to her chest as if she were carrying a bomb about to explode. And in a way that's exactly what it was. The documents and the recording Helena had gathered contained direct evidence of the systematic abuse that had occurred within the São Gabriel boarding school. Records of torture, forged reports, silenced testimonies. And at the center of it all, the name Carlos Antunes, now a federal congressman and a frontrunner in the presidential race. In the days that followed, Clara reached out to journalists, NGOs, and activists. Most turned her away. Fear, pressure, silence. Until she found Mateus Viller, a former investigative reporter who had tried to expose the case back in the 90s. He not only recognized the story but revealed that he had been threatened at the time for pushing the investigation. Your mother is one of the few survivors brave enough to face this head-on. But you need to be careful. People like this don't hesitate to erase those who know too much, he warned. Together, Clara and Viller compiled a full dossier. They didn't take it to the police, but to the international press. On a Monday morning the scandal exploded. Congressman linked to abuse rings silence for 40 years, the headlines read. Newspapers, podcasts, TV shows. Viral videos, street protests, and other survivors finally finding the courage to speak up. The entire nation was torn between shock and disbelief. And then came the final blow. On a rainy afternoon, Clara received a phone call from a private number. On the other end, the voice was shaking, but unmistakable. Clara? Mom? Helena was alive. She had gone into hiding with the help of a network of former victims and activists. She knew that once the names were revealed, she would be hunted. Her disappearance had been part of a plan, to protect Clara and to ensure the truth made it to the world before it could be silenced. They reunited days later, in a safe house deep in the countryside of Minas Gerais. The hug lasted a long time. Neither of them could speak for several minutes. On the final page of Helena's diary, Clara wrote, "My mother didn't vanish. She resisted. And instead of leaving me grief, she left me a cause. The truth doesn't die. It only sleeps, until someone dares to wake it up."